Alright YouTube, another freezing cold day here in New England. 22 degrees today. So we're going to do an oil change today on a Honda EU7000is Generator. And you should be doing this oil change at least once a year or more often if you're running it quite often. So I'm going to take you through the steps, explain how it's done. Doesn't take very long and it's pretty easy and saves you a trip to the dealer. Alright, first thing we want to do is start the generator and let it run for about 5 to 10 minutes to let the oil warm up. Turn your key, one press. I'm going to let that go for about 5 minutes. Alright, so these are the tools you need to do this job. Pretty basic stuff. This is a drain pan. You can certainly use a piece of foil left over from the holidays or some sort of a pan. Oil rag, flathead screwdriver, 3/8 inch ratchet. This is just a normal ratchet. I'm using one with a flex head. You certainly can use whatever ratchet you have around. This is important. This is a 12mm socket. And again, you want to use metric here. And again, it's 12mm. That's for the drain bolt. Next thing you need is going to be 2 quarts of Honda oil. The generator actually only uses about 1.1 quarts, but you're really going to need to use the second quart to top it off. So buy 2. Last but not least, so you might be wondering, where's the funnel for this oil change? This is a great little tip I use all the time. I've been doing this for years. So these you can get at any auto store, and a lot of times the Honda dealers are going to have them too. All this is a squirt top that they generally use with differential oil. So if you go to like an AutoZone or any of your auto parts store, typically they're going to have these around. A lot of times they're free. But once you get one, you can reuse them. These are a lot cleaner than a funnel, and I'll show you how I use this. It just makes the job a lot easier. If you don't have this little thing and you don't want to bother, just use a funnel, it's fine. The problem with the funnel is though, with the Honda generators, it's very easy to overfill the oil. So we're going to open up the side door, and if you were standing at the front of your generator, this is the right side. So again, if you're facing the plugs, the easiest way to think about this is the right side. But it's not a big deal if you open the wrong side, you just go to the other door. If you're looking at the top of the generator, looking down, you're going to notice that right here, there is a small black little square cutout. All you need to do is just use your finger, and you're going to just push on that, and it's going to pop right out. So you see that just falls. You won't lose it because it's got a little hook on it. But next step is just as easy. We're just going to take the oil dipstick out. You're just going to gently unscrew that. Have your rag ready, because chances are it's going to drip oil when it comes out. So just take this dipstick. I'm going to clean it off a bit, and we'll put this aside. Next step we're going to do is we're going to put our drain pan underneath the generator. What's awesome about Honda is that this generator is high enough up. So all you need to do is just put your pan right underneath. You don't need to jack the generator up. You don't really need to do much of anything. Next step is we got to crack the drain bolt and let the oil come out. So that you know where it is. The oil bolt is right here. The silver bolt right here. Very easy to access, and there's even a little ramp. This little black thing is a ramp so that when the oil comes out, it's going to go right down that cutout into the drain pan that we just put down. Now we need to get our tools. We need to get our ratchet, and again we're going to use a 12mm socket. So put this together, make sure that we're going the right way on the ratchet, and we're going to take this bolt out. And this bolt is pretty easy to get at. The most important part is making sure that you've got a good solid fit in the bolt, and then we're going to hold on and give it a turn. Okay, now that's loose. Okay, we're going to unscrew the drain bolt with our hands, and you'll see that the oil should start to come out. At the end of this bolt, there's a washer. I wouldn't worry about it right now, but we just want to make sure that the washer is on the bolt. If it's not, we'll get it later. And there goes our oil. We're going to let our oil drain for about 3 to 5 minutes. If it's colder out, you may need to let it drain longer. I like to let it drain until it really isn't coming out much at all, maybe a drip or 2. Okay, our oil's looking pretty good, so let's spend another second on this drain bolt. So if you look right here, right now I've got the drain bolt. It has no washer on it though. So the washer is still in this little holder here. So you could just put the bolt back in and not worry about it, but you really want to make sure that there is a washer on this bolt. So what I do is I actually put my little finger in here and I'm going to try to wiggle it out and see if we can get it, which we just did. So all you got to do is press in there a little bit. I really would avoid using a tool. So this washer just belongs right on this bolt, just like that. So again, it's critical. You got to make sure you have a drain plug washer. If something goes wrong and you lose this, these are only about 50 cents at the dealer. Might be a little bit more than that, but you can buy another one. Generally, I do not replace these, especially on a newer machine like this. I might replace it down the road, but that's up to you. Okay, so now we've got our oil drained out, we've got our plug out, we've got our washer on the bolt. So all we've got to do now, I like to dry this a little bit just to get that little bit of oil off. So we'll just give that a quick wipe. And then I'm going to replace this. I'm going to screw this in by hand. I don't recommend using your ratchet until you're at the very end. Very gently, you just want to tighten that up. Tighten that in until it doesn't go anymore. All right. That's in. So at this point, we're going to take our ratchet, I'm going to reverse the direction, and we're just going to give this bolt a little bit of a tightening. So as far as how tight to make this, you want to snug it up. I don't recommend tightening it and over tightening it, So just tighten it a fair amount, but if you feel like you're really going crazy, you're probably going to have an issue. Now we're going to take our drain pan out since there's no real need for it anymore. You obviously want to dispose of that oil in a legal and proper way. Next piece, this little rubber plug that we replaced that's in the bottom here, we're just going to press that right back in. That just presses in. You don't need any tools. Just push it in the middle, right in the middle, and hopefully you can see my finger there pushing that. And what happens is it's got a little lip to it, and once you get it in, you can slide it around a little bit. And it's pretty good. So now we're all set. We've got this tightened back up. Our drain panel is replaced. All we've got to do is add the oil and we're done. Now this is where my little trick is going to come in. So we're going to take our quart of oil. We're going to open this right up. Most Honda oil does not have a seal on the bottle. They just break, just kind of like soda bottles. So there's no foil seal to remove. But this is where my little trick really helps. So instead of bothering with that funnel, this little doodad or whatever you want to call it, but it's essentially designed for when you're putting differential oil in. And like I said, these little caps are all over the place. If you ask an oil dealer if you have any of the differential fill nozzles, they're typically going to give you these, and they usually have a bundle of them around. So these fit on these perfectly. So we're going to screw that on. And it screws on tight. And what I like about this is, again, you don't need a funnel. So right off the bat, this entire quart is going to go right in here, and you're not going to have an issue doing that. So we're going to pour this in, and I'm going to watch through the oil filler hole. And we're squeezing in this entire quart, but I have a pretty good view as I'm filling it up so that I know I'm not going to overfill it. And I don't recommend you pull the bottle too far away, but I wanted to give you a little bit of a shot of how it looks. And I can already see that it's starting to fill up a little bit inside, but with the 1 quart, this shouldn't be a problem. So again, this just took me like 20 seconds, and I didn't need a funnel, which was nice. And it's not that a funnel's a big problem, but I don't spill any oil, which is good, and it really is a time saver. So now that I've just added my 1 quart, if we look in the hole, you can just see that the oil fill is pretty much getting right up there to the threads. So I could add a little bit more oil, but there's really no need for it at this point. And as I said earlier, sometimes you're going to get the 1.1 quarts out, other times you're just going to get 1 quart out. So in this time, I think that looks pretty good, but let's give it a check to make sure. So let's take our dipstick, we're going to put it into the hole. Do not tighten it while you're checking the oil. That's not how you do it. You just put it in, hold your rag underneath to catch any oil spilling, and take it out, and let's take a look at it. So right now, if you look where my finger is, I can see that there's oil about halfway up, and that's acceptable. You actually can have oil anywhere showing on the stick, and that meets Honda's requirement. So you could top a little bit more oil if you really wanted to, but there's no need for it. So this is actually perfect. So all we need to do now is put our dipstick very gently. These dipsticks have a tendency to do what they call cross thread. That just means that they'll mess up the plastic. So when you put this in, if it feels real tight, back it off and put it back in. So we're just going to tighten this up. There's an O-ring, so you just give it a good snug. And that's the end of the oil change. We just got to do our final test and we're completely done. Good news, folks, you're done changing the oil on your Honda EU7000is Generator. Last couple of steps. Close the door. Flathead screwdriver. Give that a quarter turn. This is all closed. Last final things you need to do, we're going to run this generator outside for a minute or two, or maybe even 5 minutes, just to make sure everything's good. I still recommend checking the oil one more time. Anytime you change the oil, you just want to make certain everything is good, no leaks, and that it's running great. So you saved a bunch of money. You didn't have to take it to a dealer or somewhere else to do this, and it's something you should know how to do yourself. Really only costs about 15 bucks, and that's really if you're buying that oil at full price. Let's see how we did.